Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for attending. Welcome. This is a virtual meeting of Kensington and Chelsea's Council's Licensing Subcommittee. It's a public meeting held via Microsoft Teams, live stream, so please be aware you are being recorded. And please keep microphones all on mute until you're speaking, and if you want to turn your cameras on or off, it is up to you. The matter before us today is an interim steps hearing for a summary review of the licensed premises Jayco, basement 1A Kensington High Street, W8. I'm Councillor Sof McVeigh and I'm chairing today, and I have no interest to declare. Joining me on the committee are fellow councillors, and I'll ask you to introduce yourselves, please, and also make any declaration of interest. So, Councillor Williams.
I'm Councillor Charles Williams, Councillor Redcliffe Ward, and I have no interest to declare.
Thank you. Councillor Healy.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Councillor Pat Healy. I represent Dalgarno Ward, and I have no interest to declare.
Thank you very much. As this is virtual and I might lose connection, I'd like to nominate a substitute chair, please, committee members. So can I please nominate Councillor Healy? Councillor Williams, do you second this nomination?
I second that.
Thank you. So Councillor Healy is duly appointed if needed. Thank you. And if anyone wishes to make a point, please can they raise their hand in the kind of the signal thing rather than use the chat box, I think is probably better, and I'll try to bring you in if needed, or governance will draw my attention to it. And so before we get to the case in hand, we're going to go around and do introductions, please, to check everyone's here. So in terms of council officers, we have our licensing council officer who's going to be presenting the case. We have Fiona Johnson. Can you just confirm you're here? Fiona, brilliant.
Sorry, good morning, sorry.
Thank you, Fiona, nice to see you. And then we have our legal advisor, Ms. Heidi Titcombe.
Good morning, Chair, I'm here.
Thank you. Thank you. And then we have our committee officers, Anne Wright and Gareth Ebenezer.
Yes, good morning, everybody.
Great, fantastic, thank you very much. And then the police are represented, I understand, by Mr. James Rankin, and I believe you're accompanied by PC Ian Davis and Natalie Charles.
Absolutely right, ma'am.
Fantastic. And
that's correct, ma'am.
Brilliant. And Natalie Charles.
Good morning, Chair.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And the premises license holder is Sakira Limited, who is represented by Mr. Yo and accompanied by Miss Tricker, Mr. Giuliani and Mr. Vittorio de Bello.
That's correct. Good morning, ma'am.
Fantastic. And the other parties?
Good morning, Ms. Tricker here. Good morning, everyone.
This is Said Gilani. Good morning, Chair.
Thank you. And Mr. Vittorio?
Hello.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And Ms. Wright, is there anyone else attend? Sorry, can you put yourself on mute, please, Mr. Victoria? Thank you. And is there anyone else we need to be aware of who's attending?
No, that's everyone. Thank you, Chair.
Great. So I'll just outline what we have before us today and what the committee can do. So the Metropolitan Police have applied for a summary review of the Jayco licence, as they consider the premises is associated with serious crime and serious disorder. The full hearing of the review will take place within 28 days of the date of the application was made. And the purpose of today's hearing is for the committee to consider whether it's necessary and proportionate to take any steps pending the determination of the full review. So the committee has the power to take a range of steps today, which include modifying the conditions of the current licence, excluding the sale of alcohol from the scope of the licence, removing the designated premises supervisor, to suspend the licence, or if it considers appropriate, take no interim steps today. The committee notes that the police have asked for the licence to be suspended pending the hearing of the full review. So the procedure before us today will have Ms. Johnson will give a brief outline of the application, and then it's the police, represented by Mr. Rankin, will do his submission up to 10 minutes. And then normally we would ask questions, and likewise the opposing party will ask questions. But what I'd quite like to do today is actually then go straight on to hear the submission on behalf of the premises license holder by Mr. Yeo, if that's all right. So hear them both together and then go back, and each party will have a chance to ask questions of the other party, as to will the committee members. And then we'll ask our legal advisor, Ms. Titcombe, to deal with any questions that she may have. And then we'll turn to governance to see if any issues have been raised. And then the committee will adjourn to a private session to make a decision. And then the hearing will be reconvened to confirm this decision, and it will be announced today. So I hope that is that clear with all parties? Can I just check with Mr. Rankin and with Mr. Yeo that you're happy about the order regarding the questions?
Yes, I'm entirely happy.
Yes, thank you.
Great. So fantastic. Ms. Johnson, would you like to start, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, all. We have before us today an application for an expedited review, which has been submitted by PC Ian Davis of the Metropolitan Police under Section 53A of the Licensing Act 2003 in respect of JACO 1A Kensington High Street, W8 5NP. A copy of the application can be found at Appendix A, pages 3 to 10 of today's bundle. I can confirm that the application was accompanied by a certificate given under Section 53A1B by a senior police officer of or above the rank of superintendent, stating that he is of the opinion that the licensed premises is associated with serious crime and serious disorder. This certificate can be found at pages 5 and 6 of today's bundle. A copy of the current premises licence for JACO can also be found at Appendix B, pages 11 to 26. And as the Chairman has mentioned earlier, the Licensing Authority must now consider whether it's necessary to take interim steps pending the determination of the review application, and the steps have been outlined before by the Chairman. That concludes the summary of today's application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now we're going to move on to Mr. Rankin, please. Thank you.
Morning, ma'am. I'm grateful and acknowledge the stance taken by Ms. Tricker and Mr. Yeo, who do not oppose the application that I make. They don't suggest that the incidents that took place on the 9th of January were anything other than serious. And they don't oppose any interim step suspension. There was an email that you will have seen of yesterday's date indicating that position, and I'm grateful for it. Now, I know that you will have read all of the papers, so I hope that in view of the stance that has been taken by the operators, that I can take this fairly swiftly. The 9th of January, there were 2 instances, both related to JACO. The first was a fight that took place outside the premises at about 4 a.m. It was a large fight. 3 people were stabbed. They're not life-threatening injuries, and they have been all released as a result of treatment that they received. 4 of the suspects in the case, who were believed to have conducted the stabbings, had been inside JACO, and 2 of the victims had been inside JACO. That's all that we can find out at the moment on a cursory examination of the CCTV footage, which has been given to us willingly, I should add, by the operator. The second fight took place just around the corner in Kensington Court, where some 15 to 20 persons, arming themselves with belts and it's thought a knife, took part in an altercation there. The first altercation resulted in arrests, a number of arrests for GBH, and a number of arrests for obstruction of police and assault of police and criminal damage on the police car. Now, the biometric scanner, again, which was willingly volunteer, the information contained on the biometric scanner revealed on a cursory glance that one of the conditions on the licence had been breached, namely that they should not allow admissions to persons after 1 o'clock in the morning. And it seemed that between 1 o'clock in the morning and 2:25, there are some 60 people that are admitted. We're not saying that that is the cause of those two incidents, but it's an illustration of the approach that the operators appear to be taking to the running of their premises. Now, there are a number of conditions on the licence, some 57, and in between now and the full hearing, the police will be conducting an audit of those conditions to identify whether there has been compliance with those conditions. And the view that we take about whether we will be applying for revocation or whether we will be applying for a lengthy suspension is not yet settled, and I don't wish to tie the Commissioner's hands. The event on the 9th of January was a promoted event, and we have had discussions with the operators before about these promoted events because it attracts a crowd, and the premises have a demographic which is, in the view of the Commissioner, unwelcome. I'm going to grasp this nettle. The people that have been frequenting the premises are those that are associated with gangs, and we had occasion to warn the operator on the 6th of December last year about our concerns and the promoted events that they were hosting. And you will see from the list of other incidents that have taken place that a pattern has emerged. So on the 6th of December, there was a fight. A man sustained an eye injury. The suspect who had assaulted him, occasioning this eye injury, also assaulted his own girlfriend. That's the suspect's girlfriend. And as is common, I'm afraid, with this incident and other incidents, the victim
Madam, I think we've lost Mr.
Yeah,
Rankin at the moment. Yeah. So I wonder if we could just wait a few moments for him to reconnect.
Perfect. I was wondering if it was my connection or his. Let's just temporarily wait for a few minutes. We won't officially adjourn. If any party has his phone number, and do you have Mr. Rankin's phone number?
I do indeed, Chair. I can give him a ring.
Yeah, or that'd be great. And just tell him we're waiting.
Yeah, I've just WhatsApped him to say that his connection's dropped out. Hopefully he'll reply.
Thank you, Ian. That's very helpful. He may just need to turn his camera off. And Heidi, in terms of procedure here, we are just temporarily pausing it, not adjourning it. And he is able to phone in if need be, isn't he?
Yes, I believe that's the case. I mean, it's often the case that internets drop out. So if we just wait a few minutes, I can see he's actually left now. So yeah. He's probably trying to reboot and get back in.
Perfect.
Yes, I can confirm he's left the meeting, so I'll let him back in now. I think he's in the lobby.
Thank you. Welcome back.
How annoying. I'm not sure where I was bounced out of the meeting, but
you were pretty much bounced out. You were talking about the promoted event on the 9th associated with gangs, and that the operators were warned on the 6th of December. That's where you were up to. If you wish to turn your camera off, if that helps, that's completely fine.
Let me do that. So they were warned about it, and the operators suggested that they would do no more further events for that month being December. And the event on the 9th of January was a new promoted event the day before the premises were intended to close for a refurbishment and rebranding. Prior to that, in this pattern of incidents, there is mention made on the 17th of September of last year, 1:15, where a group was attacking one victim. And to its credit, the venue did call the police. I wouldn't want it thought that premises should shy away from calling the police. They did the right thing in that instance. And the victim was set upon by a number of people. He received injuries for a cut lip and swelling to his cheek. He was taken to St Mary's. But I'm afraid the police again were unable to take any further action because the victim was unwilling or unable to take matters any further. And then prior to that, the most relevant is the 28th of August at 3:30 in the morning, 3 weeks prior to the incident in September. Large fight, 10 to 15 people, victim set upon by 3 or 4 people, and he was punched and kicked. There were multiple skirmishes involving some 30 people. This is all outside the premises. And then the victim, having been set upon, had a bottle dashed on his head, received a 7-centimeter cut, and after he was slumped against the wall, having been hit with the bottle, was punched twice and further slumping against the wall. And then there was a headbutt on the 4th of December 2020. So the view that we take is that something clearly needs to be done. What needs to be done in the longer term will be reviewed, obviously, when the full review hearing comes before your committee. But for the moment, we lay down this marker that the operators must seriously consider the demographic of the people that they're attracting to these premises, because it seems that changing the door staff to upgrade to tighter security hasn't cured it. The nub of it lies with the clientele and with these promoted events. So I was going to leave it there. Ian Davis obviously is available to answer questions when the moment arises, but for the moment I'm just going to draw stumps at this stage.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rankin. And so we're going to just hold our questions, if we may, for now, please. And we're going to move to Mr. Yeo, who is doing the submission on behalf of the licensed premises holder. Thank you.
Yes, as has already been said by Mr. Rankin, and as you've seen from the email of Lana Tricker from the 13th of January, we don't oppose a suspension of the licence pending the review hearing on the 8th of February. The purpose of a hearing such as the one we're conducting today is to look into purely interim steps, and it isn't a hearing in which the committee is being asked to delve into the rights and wrongs of each stage of matters to date, nor indeed into what measures ought to be taken by the premises and by the committee on a prospective basis. So suffice to say, for the time being, we have been cooperating with the investigation into the particular incident. Prior to that incident, as Mr. Rankin has already alluded to, the premises had already undertaken that they were going to close and take measures and look into what was required by way of changes to the premises. All of that is ongoing. It's something which I'll be able to report back upon on the 8th of February at the final hearing. But our current position is simply this, that for the time being, we are content that the premises should be closed pending the hearing on the 8th of February, and therefore we don't oppose the measures sought by the police.
Okay, thank you. So now I'd like to just turn to my fellow committee members to ask any questions. First of all, if you'd like to ask any questions to Mr. Rankin or the police. Charles Williams, I believe you had.
Yes, I have one. Well, in fact, perhaps both parties can help with this. Do I understand that each of the incidents which were described, they all related to nights on which promoted events were held, and over the period that these incidents took place, several months, how frequently were promoted events held?
From the police's point of view, I can say with certainty that the 9th of January 2022 was promoted, as indeed with the 6th of December 2021. I do not know and do not have information about the other evenings.
Perhaps Mr. Yeo could come in here, or Mr. Yep.
Yes, for my part, I believe that to be the case. It may be that Mr. Syed Gilani can help in that respect, just to confirm that that's correct.
Hello, hi. Yes, the 9th of January, correct, was a promoted event. We had promoters who had booked tables. The 6th of December, that was actually a corporate event with very little people. I think it was around 60 people. And unfortunately, something had happened at that event outside. But the 9th of January, yes.
And then I think
Sorry, Mr. Yeo, can I just double check? So they're obviously not the same promoter. One was a corporate event, one was a...
Correct, correct.
Right, and the one on the 9th of January, have you used that promoter before?
Yes, we have. Yes.
And have you had incidences with that promoter before?
No, not at all.
Okay, sorry, back to Councillor Williams, thank you.
Yeah, yes, from the September event, which appeared to be on a Thursday night, Friday morning, not a weekend.
I would have to look at that, but I would have thought that was a promoted event also, yes.
Okay. And generally, how frequently do promoted events take place?
Prior to the pandemic, no way near as frequently as now. I mean, obviously, you know, the businesses have closed, and it's more difficult to book business parties and corporate events. Therefore, I think it's turned more into a promoted event venue, let's say, but otherwise it never used to be. So right now, I would say between 5 and 6 nights per month would be promoted.
Thank you very much, that's helpful.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, Councillor Williams?
No, not at this stage, no.
Well, I'd just like, before I bring in Councillor Healy, I'd just like to ask a question to just to get a little bit more of an understanding of the operating systems there. So Mr. Giuliani, I see you're called an operational consultant. So
business consultant, correct. Business consultant.
Right, so you're an independent business consultant to other premises as well, or just this premises?
Just this one, just this one.
Right, and then also, can I just bring in Mr. Vittorio De Bello? You're as the DPS? Yep. You're muted.
Yes, correct. I am a DPS and owner of the venue.
And owner of the venue. Right, thank you. Just to understand the different roles. Thank you very much, Councillor Healy. Any questions?
Well, given what we've been told...
Sorry, Mr. Vittorio, you need to go on mute again. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'll try again. Given the way that the case has been presented both by the police and the premises, I'm not sure that the questions that I have are appropriate, but I would just like to ask one, and that is, the evidence before us shows quite clearly that perhaps the training of staff has not been what it should be. I mean, the conditions state that the staff should be trained at least biannually in issues like recognising crime scenes, not serving alcohol to people who are already drunk, and so on. Can the premises give any response to what staff training has been undertaken?
Sorry, if I can interject there once more. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes, hi. Yes, I mean, we've done a food alert training, which has got all of the trainings that staff need, including spotting intoxications, but it's not so in depth. Now, post-pandemic, we've had a lot more, well, a different kind of clientele come to the venue. So I would have thought we would have to have more intense training. So what we've done is we've booked this training called Wave Training, which is due to take place in the next 2 weeks. I had a meeting with Philippe from Wave Training on the 12th of January, and that's to put that in place. This was something that we had tried to book in December. However, it was delayed until January because that was their first availability. And that's going to be the staff and the security being trained on that. Of course, the staff have been trained to notice intoxications, but again, post-pandemic, what we've noticed is people have been preloading drinks before they've even got to the venue because they've been locked away for quite some time. So what we dealt with, the demographic of clientele and the type of clientele we have is not something that's historically been in Jacko before, but it's just been a bit of a different time, hence why we voluntarily said we will close on the 10th. Unfortunately, this incident happened on the 9th, which we are treating also very seriously. But before we open, everything's going to be put in place, including all the intense training that's needed by security and staff.
And this is something that will happen if we do agree to suspend?
Correct, correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I suppose my question is, Rich, to Mr. Rankin, just to understand the scope today. So I think the committee is clear that both parties agree with a suspension, but you mentioned that you didn't, there's obviously, this is not, we're deciding today whether you may be applying for a revocation or applying for a lengthy suspension. That's not decided yet. Just so all parties can understand the scope of today, at what point will that happen before the full review on either, I believe we're talking about the 8th or the 9th, the review is, I think it's on the 8th, isn't it? Yes. At what point will you decide what you are going to be applying for?
We have to perform a number of tasks, first of all. We have to satisfy ourselves as to what actually happened, or get a clearer picture, having examined the closed-circuit television footage. And then we also have to satisfy ourselves that the conditions on the license have been complied with in whole or in part, just to make sure that the premises, if they're allowed to continue trading after a suspension, are capable of operating in accordance with their procedures and the conditions as laid down by this committee. We have not made that decision yet, and it requires a full review of the CCTV footage and a full review of the conditions before we can make that decision. But it's hoped that we can make that decision sometime before the 8th of February.
Thank you. And just before I bring in Ms. Titcombe, so the conditions, and maybe again Ms. Titcombe will answer this, because before the 8th we will want to have 3 days at least before the 8th. We'd want to have your view of the conditions and also the operator's view of the conditions. Is that something that you think you would be putting forward, Mr. Rankin, or would it be something Mr. Yeo would be putting forward?
It's certainly evidence in relation to the compliance of the conditions is something that we would be putting forward. This isn't one of those cases where one would attempt to load more conditions on the license, save perhaps for a condition relating to the use of promoters. But certainly in advance, at least 3 days in advance before the hearing on the 8th, we will be in a position to firm up on what our position is.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Yeo, I suppose the same question to you about the conditions.
Yes, for our part, we are conducting a operational review in any extent, and so we'll be able to report back for our own part as to that. We are cooperating with the police in the meantime. We are having the training which Mr. Gilani has referred to, and it's our intention to obtain new security and a new designated premises supervisor to propose by the 8th of February. I note that the 8th is a Tuesday, so 3 days before, which has just been referred to, would take us to the Saturday. For my part, I would suggest that the most helpful thing would be that if the police were in a position to indicate their position by the 3rd, then we would, that's the Thursday, the 3rd of February, then we would be in a position to respond to that on the 4th of February, so that it gives time for the council itself to confirm its approval or otherwise or its position in relation to what's being said by way of proposals from the licensee and by way of the approach taken by the police.
Mr. Rankin?
Yes, I should also add into this mix that quite separate from the position that the police take, licensing officers themselves have been conducting their own investigations and engagement with the premises prior to this incident taking place on the 9th of January. And they also will have input as to what they perceive to be the appropriate outcome of the full review proceedings. But for our own part, we should be in a position round about the 3rd or 4th of February to inform not only the licensing office but also the operator as to what our settled position will be.
That is very helpful. I'm now going to bring in Ms. Titcombe because I know she's been waiting very patiently. Thank you.
Thank you. Just there's two aspects to that. I think in terms of conditions, there are an awful lot of conditions on the licence, and what would be helpful for the members if all the parties, and in fact I appreciate that as this is a review, it will be consulted on, so we may well have other parties, including the licensing authority and residents, who will make representations as part of that consultation exercise. But it will certainly be helpful for the committee to have a comprehensive list of any changes that are proposed to the conditions, because some of the conditions may need amendment, and it would be helpful if discussions could take place certainly between the licensing authority, the police and the operators, so that a comprehensive list is presented to the members by the Friday before the hearing, as suggested, which I think is the 4th of February. And second, so I'd be interested to know whether Mr. Rankin and Mr. Yeo would be able to agree to that. And secondly, the committee today does have the power to add conditions. And one of the points that has been raised is about promoted events. So the committee could add a condition today to say that there shall be no promoted events at the premises, pending the full review. And I would be quite interested to hear Mr. Rankin's and Mr. Yeo's views on that suggestion. Thank you.
Well, the view that police take is that there's little point imposing a promoter condition at this stage. If the licence is to be suspended, then it can't operate. And it's then academic as to whether there's a condition relating to promoters and the forbidding of their use or the regulation of their use. So I think that's something that we can deal with on review if the position is that the police feel that that is an appropriate and proportionate condition, but not now. And certainly your first point about liaising with the operator and the licensing officers about wording of conditions and doing a formal audit of the existing conditions and perhaps amending, removing, improving them. We can do that.
Thank you, that's helpful. Mr. Yeo?
Yes, I mean, as to the wording of any proposed conditions, we can certainly come to our position by the 4th of February, having liaised with the police and hopefully having got their more general position communicated to us on the 3rd of February. So I'm content with that. Plainly, in terms of the proposal, in terms of a condition on the licence for no promoted events, ultimately, although we have both set out our positions, ultimately, of course, it's a question for the council, for the committee members, as to what the appropriate steps to be taken today are. And obviously, given our position more generally, we wouldn't oppose such a condition if that's what the members felt was the appropriate step.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for clarifying that, Mr. Tim. Councillor Williams, are your hands up?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yes, so Mr. Rankin, I mean, equally, you haven't suggested as an interim step any amendment to the hours.
No, but that is all up in the air, and it's something that will be part of our review and our finalised position when we come back before the licensing committee. But we haven't ruled it out in the same way that we haven't ruled out revocation as a possible solution to the review.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just want to check if the committee has any further questions at this stage, because we're moving towards adjourning for our decision making.
I have no further questions.
Madam Chairman, I'm just checking, just procedurally, just to make sure that Mr. Rankin and Mr. Yeo.
Yeah, I was just coming to them, Mr. I was just coming to them. I was asking the committee first. Yeah. So, Mr. Rankin, do you have any questions to the other party?
No questions.
Mr. Yeo?
No, thank you very much.
No. Ms. Titcombe, any more clarifications or questions you want to ask to any parties?
None from me, thank you.
No. Governance? That's right.
Nothing from me, thank you, Chair.
Okay, so I believe we have now covered all of the points we need to cover, and the committee will now go into private session to make a decision. So we're going to officially adjourn this until 11 a.m. if that's all right. And we will reconvene at 11 a.m. and we will announce our decision then, which will take immediate effect.
Thank you, Ben.
Okay, so this hearing is officially adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
for waiting. Sorry, it took a little bit longer than we thought. So I'm now officially reconvening the hearing after the adjournment we've just had. So this is the interim steps decision for Jayco Basement 1A, Kensington High Street, W8. The committee has carefully considered the application for the expedited review by the police and the submissions of the premises licence holder. The committee is concerned about the very serious incidences which have occurred at these premises, and our decision is to suspend the licence with immediate effect pending the full review. The committee has agreed with the police that the premises is associated with serious crime and serious disorder, and that suspension is necessary and proportionate. We welcome that the premises licence holder has agreed to a suspension. The committee is concerned about the use of promoted events and the clientele these attract, with possible gang links, and the several serious fights that have occurred. The committee also notes that the licensing authority and the police have engaged extensively with the premises on these issues over the last 12 months and have raised concerns about the escalating behaviour of their clientele. The full review hearing will take place within 28 days of receipt of the police application to review the licence, which will make the hearing on the morning of Tuesday, the 8th of February. And we would ask that all parties audit the current conditions on the licence and circulate a comprehensive list of any amendments they consider appropriate to the licensing authority by 5 p.m. on February the 4th. And a copy of the reasoned decision will be circulated as soon as possible, and this summary decision will also be circulated. So just to clarify, the full review will take place in person in the town hall starting at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, the 8th of February. Thank you very much. This hearing is now officially closed. Thank you.